being empathetic and showing grace and meeting people where they are has always been a good leadership philosophy. Everybody has the ability to just be amazing and not chase other people's goals, not look at celebrities and all these people to chase after, but just really get into doing the best that you can for everybody that you're in community with. Perspective is one of those things that's the unteachable craft, right? There's no way to get true perspective from other people unless you get to know them, hear their side, hear their backgrounds.
All right, welcome to the Doing the Work podcast. I am here with my good buddy, Grant C. Smith. We're fellow students at the Army Sergeants Majors Academy right now. And man, I'm just so glad to have you on the episode. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, Ethan, thanks a lot for having me, man. I've been excited since we talked about doing this and being fellow classmates. You know, we're suffering in silence together, and now we get an opportunity to kind of, catch back up and get after it. So yeah, man, thanks for having me on. I'm really stoked to be here.
Yeah, of course. I think one of the coolest things of being at the Academy for me, and it's what was told to me before I came here, but the networking aspect, like the people I'm meeting, the high caliber individuals, the leaders with all this vast varying levels of experience has been just super cool to get to know everybody. Forget the coursework, like I'm getting the coursework done, but like what I really want to do is dig into the leaders and try to learn as much as I can from them, because I think that's really what's going to serve me the most and serve the world the most, moving forward.
Yeah, completely agree, man. Like, again, we're getting through the coursework and we're learning different, nuances of how to do high level tactical stuff, whatever. But I would agree, like between the cadre, the instructors, the fellow students, perspective is one of those things that's the unteachable craft, right? There's no way to get true perspective from other people unless you get to know them, hear their side, hear their background. So I would agree that being in community with all these students is what is making my academy experience so much better. And I'm sure, you feel the same way.
100%. It's what you make it. There's all these different types of people here, and you'll hear people complain about, various different things about the academy and whatnot. And for me, I'm like, hey, look, man, you're missing the point here. Like, it's what you make it. If you're sitting here thinking that somebody's just going to enlighten you or somehow impart some wisdom on you and you're, or whatever, you're expecting something out of the course, it's going to be how your perspectives and are you willing to be a sponge and kind of take it in. I think a major failure of a lot of leaders that I know is they want to tell you how right they are and how much they know, but they're not really willing to listen to other people about what they know and consider the fact that maybe there's some different ways or better ways to do what they're doing.
Yeah, two things on that. It's all about mindset, like I agree 100%. Like if you go in with the right mindset, there's always going to be something that you can learn from anybody, regardless of what their rank is, where they're at in society. Like going in and thinking everything is negative or dumb or not worth your time is already going to set you mentally off in the wrong direction. And number two, like my wife and I were just talking about this today. They said, what's more important, being right or being in community? And that's a good point we talked about this morning, because it's like I would rather be in community with all the people that we are here at the academy and yourself, going to the gym together and all the stuff we're doing and learning all these other things, moreover than I think I need to be the rightest person in the room every time. And let's face it, everybody that's here is among the best in their craft, wherever they came from. All of us were at the highest levels in our own organizations. So for all of us to be here now, that kind of like levels the bubbles for me anyway, on how I need to posture my mind and my brain and my heart towards how I'm going to get the most out of this. So then I can give back the most, right? If I'm learning and, entwined with the community here, it's going to make me that much better when I get back out in the force, because I will have learned so much, obviously academically, but I will have been around so many other people and so many other points of views and backgrounds and walks of life that by default, it should, if we allow ourselves, it should make us better leaders.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, I'd be curious to hear from you. You had the option to, well, you had several options, right? You could have not come to the academy at all. You could have done the distance learning, or you could have came here to the residence course. What fed into that decision for you you chose the residence court. You're a reservist, right? You're in the reserves or guard?
Yes.
Yeah, reserves.
Yeah. Reserve.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So like me, I'm in the guard now, and so I had all these options. But I know what it was for me, but I'm curious for you. Why did you come to the resident course?
Yeah, achieving the position and rank of sergeant major has been, a goal of mine, for quite some time, and even years ago, I always told myself if I ever had the opportunity to go to resident course, that obviously I'd want to take it, and years go by and different things happen. And, the way we get selected, it's very tight, like you guys are a little bit differently, active duty is a little bit different with us, it's pretty tight as far as we have to get balanced against positions. And the way it works for us is if you kind of rank high enough, you have the option to submit for resident course. Doesn't mean you'll get it, but I was lucky. I did very well on last year's OML getting us here. So when I submitted my paperwork, talked to my wife and family and all that, and submitted my paperwork, and I got selected. It's kind of a double-edged sword if I'm being honest with you. I've spent a lot of time like you have, Ethan, in my career away from family, away from friends, doing all kinds of different things. And admittedly, it was a little bit selfish. If I'm being very open and transparent, it was very selfish of me to want to throw my name in the hat to get considered to go to resident course, which I did, because I could have easily done the distance learning and stayed at home and done all that. However, my wife and I talked about it. I submitted for it. I got selected. I just looked at it as an invaluable experience, not just for me, but what I can then learn from here and impart on other people. And I have a really good civilian job back home, and I'm sure that I could have managed all of the coursework and all of my civilian job and kids and family. I'm sure I could have managed it. But admittedly, those intangible things that we're learning here is what I really was after, kind of like we started with. I was really after those in between class conversations, that one-on-one time with the instructors, the structure of the academy and the curriculum is really what I was after, moreover than I was after just being able to write a good essay or do a good presentation. I was looking, because I'm such a people person, I figured if I was around all these like-minded people, number one, I could kind of see the barometer of kind of how I did some self-assessment on kind of where I was at with my career and my mindset and my growth. And then be able to just learn from all the other people, all the other folks that are here, both active duty, guard, reserve, and obviously all of our international partners as well. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, I can relate with that so much. I mean, I think for me, same thing. Like, and I'm in the difficult situation of being a business owner. So, like on the civilian side, I run my own businesses, and that doesn't stop while I'm here. I'm still running 3 businesses while still trying to keep up with all the coursework and everything. And so that was a real challenge. Like you said, just talking to family, talking to people I trust about what's the right option for me. And what it really came down to for me was was really 2 things: wanting to focus, right? Like to really like have the ability to be immersed in the experience, and to have the focus and prioritization of it. Because I know myself, like you, I could easily get through the coursework and no issues, but would I get the best? Would it be the best use of my time? And then the second part of it kind of goes into that, because it's not for me, the academy isn't about what I can get out of it. It's about what I can give, one, through the experience of being in the academy, to others, but what can I also give afterward? I want to be the best possible leader that I can be. And I want to do that for other people. I want to, so that other people maybe I can help other people move the needle. I've been so lucky to have some amazing leaders in my life and in my career, and they gave me so much that I just have a ton of gratitude around that, and I want to be able to do the same thing for other people.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way, Ethan. It's like I've been very blessed to be, have the career that I have once I got up active duty up until currently. Tons of great people that came across my path, and my mentors, and, other civilians, and just so many people. And like you, I feel like being here will posture me, with all the other things that we like to do, like all of our other practices and disciplines that we do each day to get our minds right, included with all the stuff that we're doing. I 100% agree. Like I feel like it will posture me the best to give the most back. I kind of had an epiphany moment a bunch of years ago. I don't exactly know when, but I just thought to myself, like, and it's going into my civilian life too, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But I just feel like my time now as a leader, it's not just because I'm at the academy. It really started before that. Like, I've done a lot of stuff in my career. I've had a lot of great opportunities and just so many cool things, like most of us. But who hasn't had those experiences is the soldiers that we're in charge of, right? So my goal now, as I continue to serve the rest of my time, is to come alongside all these soldiers and civilians and others, just, however God aligns these people in my life and me in their life. I'm looking at that as a blessing each day to just be in community with these people. And obviously, we're going to go to positions where we're kind of the top dog, so to speak, in one side of the organization. And so posturing our heads and our hearts the right way here is going to make us get back into formation and just be that much better. I truly believe that, for especially guys like you and I, and hopefully people that are listening, that are realizing that, like, we're just two guys that hang out here and we work out and we do all these things. But, our passion and our purpose is to continue to give back to, as many others as we can.
Yeah, I think that's how you were. So again, making friends here in the academy, that's how you were. I think I bumped into you when we were doing all of our admin, kind of getting into things, but I actually didn't know anything about you. Obviously, we're from complete different parts of the country. We didn't rub elbows during our careers or anything, but you were introduced
Yeah.
to me by other people, kind of fun in a funny way, but like, hey, you need to get to know this guy Grant because he's an influencer type like you. That was the exact words. And I have a spot in my heart for people who kind of take it of themselves. Like, you can have all this wisdom and this knowledge and this experience and use it for your own benefit, which is totally fine. I don't judge anybody for that. But then there's another group of people who take all of that and share it with others. And that's what you've been doing through your social media and through your speaking engagements and all that stuff. And so that's really why I wanted to get you on the show, is because I want to dig into who you are, your message, and what you're about. Because I think now, having like followed you on Instagram and stuff like that, you're about something. And there's a lot of stuff I don't know about you. So I really want to kind of like, dive into all that stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. I remember you had more badges on your chest than so many people, and I was like, oh man, I got to get to know this guy. Just, not that badges mean anything. No, let me take that back. Not that they define a soldier. We know that, but it always gives me a glimpse and a look into the character and the caliber of people. And then those are the people that I want to get to know. It's not just about the badges, but that tells me that you're skilled and you're knowledgeable and you're professional and all those things. And, I've met people that don't live up to that, but I'll tell you, Ethan, that's why we're in community, man. Like, I respect you. I look up to you. It's so awesome that we're in community together. And, the more we've hung out and got to know each other, it's been a lot of fun. So I appreciate Jesse telling you, hey man, this dude's cool. Let's get to chat. But, you and I were chatting earlier today about some of these things, and, my Instagram, my platform was really kind of just something that I wanted to do, because I was like, how can I have another platform to kind of talk to soldiers? And truthfully, my wife was the one that was like, don't talk about it, be about it. That's like a jokey phrase we say, we all mean it, but she's pretty big in social media. She does a lot of stuff, completely different path. But that's when I decided to do it. And truthfully, it's very unique because nothing that I really say or do is unique or new. There's no new concept that I have. There's no shirt that I sell. There's no Tumblr for, number of likes and subscribes. It's essentially, a lot of it for me is cathartic. I like to do things. I like to continue to say messages out loud that help me as well. So a lot of the stuff and messages that I say are also reminders for me to continue to do better and do all these things. But the main purpose behind me getting on social media was to continue to try to put positive messages into this world, and a lot to the young soldiers and young men and women out there. That's part one. Part two is that I will do my best to live and be that example. And so they can see the example of how I live and how I work and things that I do and say and practices. But the whole other side of the social media is that, I haven't always been this way. I didn't just show up here with a little bit of a following and everything is great and positive and I'm the best soldier in the world. There's a lot of backstory that goes to that. And so as I slowly continue the social media message and come alongside these young men and women, it gives me the opportunity to really be in community with them, people like me that have struggled in the past with, a bunch of different things, kind of as like a positive message of like, hey, man or woman, like whatever you're dealing with, like we can get through this. There are other people out there that have gone through it. There's senior leaders in the military that have struggled with it. And just to kind of like humanize some of these feelings that a lot of people out there are having, irrespective if they're in the military, there's a lot of things going on out there. And when I was younger, I always wanted somebody to, look up to, my dad was kind of in and out when I was growing up, and I always was seeking like this adult kind of male figure. And so I've always thought to myself, like a lot of the messages that I say, I'm thinking in my head, what would 12-year-old Grant, what would he have wanted or needed at that influential time in his life, or 14, 16-year-old Grant getting, going into high school and all that. So that's kind of how I frame my stuff. And, a lot of it, like I said, is just about things that I like to do and positivity and mindset and, nothing unique or original. It's just my version of it.
Yeah, I think there's so much to unpack from what you just said. One thing is that, yeah, like you said, there's like nothing that we're doing today, like that anybody's doing today that's like really unique. It's all been done. But I think that what people still need out there is someone to help them do what they already knew they were supposed to be doing, but they just are stuck in some way, shape, or form. They've got some sort of barrier to that. And there's like I said, like there's no magical habits, that secret habits that nobody knows about or
Yeah.
anything like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, and still people still have trouble doing those things for themselves. And so we need people like you out there being the example, to help figure that out. Here's what it looks like. And also the seeing the flaws or the struggles. People need to see people struggling with other people struggling things, because they're like, oh, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. We can make imperfect progress through life and be highly successful.
Yeah, you absolutely, especially in our organization, right? Which is, strength, structured and rank and all these different things. And there's been a ton of, senior enlisted and senior officers that have done a really good job on social media. A lot of it, a lot of my stuff lately has been more comedic, just to kind of poke fun at the whole thing because it's been fun. It's taken me forever to get here, so might as well have a little fun with it. Um, but it's just like it also shows flexibility and adaptability. I'm not patting myself on the back. It's one of those things like any other obstacle that we have in our life, we have to figure out a way to overcome it, right? So why I use that is because, there's a lot of people especially here in the United States, they look at senior leaders or older men and women in the military, and they look at us sometimes like we're not in touch. And there's this mantra of kind of the old heads and doing things the way we used to do and back in the day. And while that's all true, I think it shows a mark. I'm not saying I am, but it shows a mark of a good leader when they can assess situations that they're in and they can be malleable to the situation and still find effective ways to lead, right? Like I've been in a long time, you've been in a long time. That's not an excuse to not provide or do our best to provide great leadership to these young soldiers. That's not like, well, it's not like it used to be, so I'm going to just do that, and we talk about this all the time. Like so many senior leaders are fixated on one thing, so yeah, you're right. Other people are struggling these things, and with social media, it's even more of a microscope every day, so that's kind of the weird dichotomy between this. We want to put ourselves out there and show that we are human, we're still able to do these things, but it also gives that layer of like realness and connectiveness to the younger soldier or younger man or woman or somebody that maybe wants to join the military.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think one of and we've all seen examples of like bad leaders, and like one thing that I think some bad leaders do are they become disparaging or judgmental, kind of like we talked about earlier, where it's like, hey, all these, you hear it all the time, like this new generation, they're lazy, they don't, you can enter in any descriptor about, it's just finger pointing, and you see leaders saying like, oh, this is all jacked up because this isn't how we used to do it, or whatever. um and I think that's a major problem. I think as human beings and as leaders, one of the best things we can do is come from a place of understanding, awareness, understanding, and trying to put yourself in the shoes of somebody else, so that you can solve the issue.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's, you and I talk about this. We talk about this at the academy all the time. And yes, are there parts of every generation that are just, not gonna really turn out to be, the best soldier? Absolutely. That's been going on since time began. Not everybody is cut out to do 20 years, 30 years, whatever else. But, the big takeaway that I look at is like, this is the time where we should empower those junior humans, not just soldiers, but empower them to make the differences that we wanted to make when we first joined. Now, if you flip it on its head, we had less freedom and flexibility to take control of things and solve problems because of that like archaic leadership style. I'm not saying it was bad. That's just how it was when I came in. So I look at the younger generation as this is a positive opportunity to engage with this next generation of great leaders. I say that all the time on my page, like, let's empower the next generation of great leaders, because we have some in the military now that it wasn't my choice for them to join. It was their choice, but it's not going to be, we don't want to make their life miserable. Everybody joined for a reason. And so I hear this all the time. I even hear people making comments on my Instagram that I'm out of touch and I'm being unprofessional when I make my silly videos, and I'm not a good leader and all these things. And it's really awesome because I always take it with complete positivity. I always ask questions back. I don't let it bother me because I'm not going to let somebody that doesn't, add value to my life, determine how I feel about myself or how I feel about my leadership. But I look at it as a unique way for us to continue to engage with the young soldiers, because if and when something happens while you and I are still serving, this is the fighting force that we're going to have. And so I don't listen to what all the talking heads in the media say about what these soldiers are, because you and I are with them all the time. And there's a lot of damn good soldiers in our formations now that are agile, they're smart, they're adaptable, they're this technology, they've got all this stuff figured out. So I try to reap the benefits of those positive things and then come alongside them and teach them things maybe that they haven't been exposed to or they have no perspective on. I think that's the benefit of guys like you and I is we bring a lot of knowledge and experience. So if we're allowing them if we meet them where they're at in their, military journey, I see it as a very positive thing.
Yeah, 100%. Rather than trying to get them to be someone different or to, be what they're not, I think it's like, hey, let's take the best of what you're doing right now and let me see if I can help you add a couple things that I've learned over time that will help you to do what you already do even better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's just like with anything else, I don't want to turn everybody into the next Master Sergeant Smith. I want them to flourish and grow and do all these things on their own, just like I wanted to, when I was coming up the ranks. So yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head, man. Just meeting people where they are and using the rank and position and stuff and the knowledge that we have to kind of, steer them down the right roads, whether it's personally or professionally. I think that's and that's the way the Army is going, regardless of what all the talking heads on the media say. that leaders are soft and all this and that. Being empathetic and showing grace and meeting people where they are has always been a good leadership philosophy. Because people see us doing it now is where I think they get lost in thinking that we're soft, like treating people poorly and talking to them poorly has never been cool. Just because it was done to us when we came in and before that doesn't mean it was a leadership attribute that we should follow, right? A lot of us have a lot of scar tissue from how it started. And we look back and yeah, we might have learned some lessons from it, but we always remember those people that, yes, they may have gotten the results out of just us doing it. But we also remember those leaders that how they got that response from us wasn't by coming alongside of us. It was forcing us or putting us down or whatever. And you and I, we look back at our career and we know leaders like that. And yes, we got compliance. They definitely got compliance, but they never got commitment.
That's really important to me because so I have 5 personal values that I read to myself every single day to remind myself who I am and what I'm about and kind of as my compass in life. One of those 5 personal values is kindness over everything. And if you read that, depending on what lens people put on that, they might start to think like, oh, that's like, being super sweet and like not hurting people's feelings and
Hmm.
all that other stuff, but that's not what that value is for me. In fact, obviously coming from a place of compassion, understanding, um, and even curiosity is an important aspect of that. But also, one of the kindest things that you can do for anybody is to hold them to what they're capable of, hold them to the standard, without exception, and to be kind of hard on them. And I find that to be a kind act. Some of the best leaders I've had in my life, whether it be a sports coach, whether it be a military leader, whether it be in the corporate world, some sort of executive or somebody, the best leaders I've had were kind enough to to hold me to nothing less than what they knew I was capable of, which means, yeah, being hard on me and telling me when I'm doing a bad job and telling me why I'm doing a bad job and then telling me that I need to fix, I need to get right. And I think that's also an important aspect of leadership.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. That's the stuff that they don't show, in the media, right? They don't show these private conversations that you and I are having with our junior leaders and the talks that we're having with our formations. They don't see that. They again, I think you nailed it right on the head. They associate kindness with weakness. And, that's a phrase we talked about in the Army, associate kindness with weakness. But I also look at it as like exactly like what you said, that is kind of the hallmark of what some would determine of a good leader, right? How do you lead and influence others? Well, sometimes it's about knowing, like you said, exactly, Ethan, knowing their strengths and their weaknesses and doing your best to kind of extract the best out of them. And, you go back to my social media page, that's kind of what it is. There have been people that I have interacted with in the military within the last 8 months, a few months before we started transitioning out here. We did a mission in Korea, and there was people in my formation that had never been told that they did a good job. They, I could tell when I had these conversations with these soldiers, they were shocked that I was saying these things to them. Some of them were kind of taken aback that I was saying these things. Hey, I'm proud of you. You guys did a great job. The mission, all these different things. And it was very detailed, very intricate mission, had a lot of high level eyes on it. But I could tell then when I spoke to them that some of these young soldiers, men and women, and that tells me the backgrounds they're coming from and the people that had been in their life or maybe are still in their life, right? Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a parent, doesn't matter. Somebody in their life that they value their opinion, but they're not getting that feeling of, self-worth, and they're doing a great job, and, that negativity bias and that self-esteem stuff that they're starting to deal with. So I think that along with the kindness thing, I would agree that, telling people, giving them a pat on the back when it's needed, holding them to the standard and extracting the best version of Ethan or Grant out of each person, I think is one of the, like the dying arts of leadership. It's easy to stand up there and talk a bunch of big stuff about taking care of soldiers and all that stuff, but are you actually practicing it? Are you taking the moments, in the margins, so to speak, to have these conversations and do your best to try to develop them, not just as soldiers, but in some cases, human beings,
Yeah, I think, and to piggyback on that and add a layer to it, what people tend to forget is that like you don't we don't often need to tell people what they're doing wrong or how bad they're doing or what they're not good at, because our internal dialogue, the vast majority of everyone's voice inside of their head is extremely cruel and extremely hard. No one is ever hard on us more than ourselves. And so what we need to combat as leaders is that self-talk, like you mentioned self-esteem just a second ago, is like saying like, look, we tend to destroy ourselves between the ears. And what we don't need more people telling us how big of a piece of crap we are, because a lot of us already kind of feel that way, that internal child in us already kind of feels that way. What we need is someone saying like, hey, I see these abilities, I see you working hard, I see where these talents are. And having a bit of not, and I don't want to, I'm not talking about toxic positivity, right? Like if someone did a bad job, I think you need to just tell them they did a bad job. But there needs to be a layer of like, I know what you're capable of, I see all these skills and abilities, and let's get to the standard.
Yeah, and we see it a lot too, and I know it's in the civilian world too, but there's so many people that seem to judge leaders off of the type of, friendships that they have. I know there's another phrase too, leadership and likership, but the best example I can use is a bunch of years ago, I had a young soldier come up to me and say that this particular person was the best leader that she had ever met in her career. And his general, like, the understanding of this guy in this organization as a leader was generally pretty neutral to maybe slightly below average. So I was talking to her one day, and I asked her, I was like, I won't say her name, but I was like, hey, so and so, like, what? Tell me some stuff, man. Like, I'm coming up, and I'm just kind of new to this unit. Like, tell me some of these attributes that are, maybe I'm missing the mark here, and she explained to me that she looked at him as a great leader because he let her leave early, was kind of flexible with, their PT schedules, and always would like take it to the man, go and talk to people about how bad they were treating them. And then I kind of got into untying that knot a little bit. And that was her perception. Her perception was that because he was kind of letting her slide in some of these areas. I'm not saying don't give them some empathy and compassion when it comes to things going on in their life, right? We all do that, but the overall consensus was that making her life easier, meaning not holding her to the standard and not, letting her, work her full amount of hours or whatever the case was. She looked at that as being a good leader. And we see that now. We actually talk about this all the time. I'm sure you guys do too in your classes. That like when you're upholding the standards today, a lot of times people look at us crazy because it seems after the global war on terrorism era ended and we're in this kind of weird influx. It seems as though in some areas the standards in the military, are not as adhered to, and they're not demonstrated as much. And so now there's kind of this weird like washing machine effect where there's a whole bunch of us that are trying to hold the line and do the right thing and make corrections and uphold the standards. And then there seems to be this kind of permeating tone that standards are still, in flux. I'm sure you see this all the time, right?
I think there's a layer to what you said, going to that story that you just mentioned. This soldier viewed this other leader as the best leader they ever had, and I think when you dig into that a little bit, I'm sure that soldier knew that like letting go of the standards isn't like the best thing. But what probably really led to them feeling highly about that leader is, hey, this person's in my corner. This person
Hmm.
has my back. This person is trying to help me. And that's really the problem, is when you're in a leadership position and you are trying to stick up for your soldiers and like do the right thing and so on and so forth, your actions can really be perceived wrong, so you have to be really careful about how you deliver that. But whatever, forget soldiers, anyone you lead, they need to know that you have their best interests in mind, and that you're going to take care of them, and that you're going to do right by them. And I think that's probably the feeling that that soldier got about that leader. Unfortunately, poorly executed leadership in some ways.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, that what that makes me think of when you talk about that is that mutual trust, like that having somebody's back, whether it's a leader, whether it's a civilian, whatever, like building that, being this is why you and I talk all the time about those relationships and being in community with one another. It's because that's really the only way that you're going to build, mutual trust, as part of your team, is when you go through hard things, you demonstrate what leadership looks like, you demonstrate courage, and you have these back and forth things that go on that make you tighter, and you build that trust between, leader subordinate, or between leaders, et cetera. We joke all the time. This is why there's like these layers in the military, the E4 mafia, so to speak. I mean, if nothing else, they have trust that is sometimes blind, which I think is good. Just like the E9 mafia, they have trust based on these positions that is just blind. And of course, it doesn't mean that everybody's doing the right thing all the time. But what it does mean is they've been in community, they've been through hard things together, and they trust one another to do the right thing and to hold each other, to have each other's backs, and that's I think you're right. I mean, I would agree that she thought it was someone that was supportive, and of course, my philosophical brain, I always look way deeper into everything too, thinking like, well, I wonder how she grew up, and I wonder what her life was like. I always try to get, pull that thread with a lot of these soldiers to maybe figure out, and I might not be the best person for it, but try to figure out the big buzzword all now is root cause, but try to think of where these people come from in their life. And then they're all of a sudden planted into our formations or in our businesses and our community. And I think to myself, like, okay, let me see if I can dig in a little bit. So then that'll help me maybe adjust some of my conversations, or, maybe another tactic to try to, understand where they're coming from. So then I could try to help lead them better, because I'm doing my best to gain some of their perspective.
Yeah, and I think, just like, not to get over to dig into doctrine or too much, but like mutual trust is one of the key components to mission command, right? And if we want to be able to tell someone an end state, and just basically give them that end state and then expect that they're going to do it, there has to be that trust. There has to be mutual trust on both ends, or it's not going to happen. All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, because like I said, one of my big goals is to kind of just die. Like, again, you're this powerful persona, out there, and I want to dig into you a little bit, figure out what makes you tick. And I'm actually looking at that logo over your shoulder, the
Yeah.
Dash Legacy 79. I don't know what Dash means, and I don't know, you use the word legacy a lot, like that's a big part of like the language you use. And then the
Yeah.
79, I want to hear some more about that.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll start with the back one first. 79, super original, right? It was the year I was born. So no real big significance there. But yeah,
You're
so
a
a bunch of
baby.
years
I'm
ago.
I'm
Yeah. Oh,
77
yeah. You got
77.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. 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 79. It just kind of went together. And so a bunch of years ago, I was watching YouTube or something. I don't remember what it was. And I heard this lady who was speaking on a stage, and she talked about the dash on a headstone was, that time here that we have on Earth. You have your birth year, you have that little dash, and you have your death year, birth year, death year. Yeah. And I thought about that, and I always thought it was really cool. This was a lot of years ago. And then in like 2020 or something, I was hiking in Hawaii, and I was trying to update my Samsung watch, right? And I was like, oh, I need to create a profile. Um, so I thought of this story somewhere, and I thought like, oh, well, what would I want that dash to represent like in my life, And I was like, oh, I like legacy. So I literally named my Samsung like profile Dash Legacy 79. Again, super original, my birth year. It's probably all I could remember at the time. And then it just sat there for years. It was just my profile. I never really put much thought into it. And then again, I talked about when my wife and I were talking about me starting social media, I thought, hey, this will be a good name. And so, and there's other people out there that talk about the dash and all that. So how I look at it is like this, I'm a man of faith. And so I think to myself, that dash that we have on earth, or that dash is the only thing that we have on our time here on earth. You ever, again, birth year, dash, death year. So that's where dash legacy came from. So my message is about, maximizing all the things that we have here and all of our time on this side of the earth. I've even had a dream in the past where, and so envision like a standard headstone marker for like a veteran, like that white kind of oval, ish, picture. And in the dream, I could see myself, I could see my gravestone. And like in shadowy writing, like things were starting to get written underneath, the birth year dash death year. Things were starting to get written. And in the dream, I remember thinking to myself, well, whatever I do here on this earth is going to be what's going to be on my headstone. So what can I do to be the most impactful? Because for some people, it may say, loving husband, or it may say loving father, or it might have said wife or soldier, whatever the thing is. So that's just kind of been permeating with me forever, and I've dealt with, I had my own struggles in the past with, alcohol and anxiety, depression, just all kinds of insecurities and just everything. And, the more I dug into my faith and the more I started, talking things out and all that, the more I realized that like I have a unique opportunity to share some of my stories. And I have the unique opportunity that God has given me to try to be the best that I can each day. And it's not for my name, in glory, in lights, right? I just think to myself, like, we don't have a lot of time here on earth. And so what better way to think about that than to always try to think about like, so I do think about this a lot. I think, how are my actions here on earth? How are they bringing glory to God, first of all? And how are they making my family better? How are they making my organizations better? How are they making my relationships better? And so I always look at it like that. And so that's kind of the genesis of the Dash legacy, not original ideas, not original ideas. I just decided to put legacy on the end of it because generally legacy is used in a very positive connotation for the history of somebody's life. When someone says reputation, sometimes it can go, one wax and wane towards positivity or negativity. But in most cases, when you hear the legacy of something, it's something grandiose. And so it could be, again, somebody's legacy could just be that they were the best mother ever that, their kids and their family could have ever done. And so that's the drive for people that follow me or that I'm in community with. Regardless of what your passion is or what you're into or your walk in life, like everybody has the ability to just be amazing and not chase other people's goals, not look at celebrities and all these people to chase after, but just really get into living the best that you can and, doing the best that you can for everybody that you're in community with, so that's the genesis of the Dash legacy, which is weird because I came to social media with like nothing, meaning like, some people have a music career, then they launch it on social media or they have a book or they have a business, me, I'm just saying stuff on there that I like. It's kind of nebulous actually. And people have kind of joked with me about that. In the past. Actually, you and I were just talking about that the other day. Like, man, you really should be like more structured and do all this stuff. It's like, look, man, I'm not on social media to like create like a business of, selling shirts or, I mean, book. Yeah, maybe if I can learn how to write in the academy, I'll be able to put like a 5-page, big block word together, big block book together. But I just want it to be where someone can like hear it and see it and just maybe they'll get that spark and like, yeah, hey, I do want to go be in relationship with this person, or you know what, I am going to go try for that job, or I am going to, get back in the gym, or you know what, I think now's a good time to learn Spanish, whatever it happens to be, man. I just want to try to propel and promote people to just get after it. And that's not how you and I view it, right? It's not how Ethan wants you to be. It's not how Grant wants you to be. It's like, you kind of know when you're looking in the mirror what things, you need to work on and maybe things you're struggling with, and I just also want people to know that there's people like you and me out there that are here to support you and come alongside you and do our best to support all the things that you want for your life.
Now that I know the story about the Dash Legacy thing, it's I love that because well, have you read the book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So it reminds me of the part of that book where it talks about starting with the end, right? Where he has you visualize you're dead and you're laying in your coffin, and all these people from every aspect of your life, your jobs, your family, your hobbies, maybe your church, whatever all the places that you spent. There's a representative from each one, and they get up there and they talk about you and what do you want them to say when they're
Hmm.
up there. And so starting with the end in mind, and that's what the Dash Legacy kind of reminds me of, is like, look, if this is the impact that you want to leave on the world, or if this is how you want people to remember you, that starts with today. That starts with what you do today and what you do each day consistently. you know you could you know you could do something amazing one time and people are probably going to forget it, but if you do that thing consistently, that's going to become your legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, and I think it's even more, or it's equally as appropriate to apply to the soldiers, right? Because I started as the lowest ranking and now, God willing, we'll be able to achieve one of the highest levels. But it's not without, pitfalls and setbacks and all that stuff. And so I just want everyone to know, like, I'm not here saying that I'm the most unique individual, that I've got it all figured out. But what I am saying is that despite all of those things that I've been through, and they're very small in comparison to what so many others are dealing with, right? So I'm not here to say that my backstory is any more complex or hard than anybody else's, but it's all about perception, right? So what may be a big obstacle that I overcome in my life may be a blip on the radar to somebody else. They may have already dealt with that and they may be somewhere else. But then there are people that they start feeling a certain way because they don't get the job they want or they don't get this relationship they want. We never know the trauma that people are going through, and we never know how those things are going to impact everything they do each day. So that's kind of the way I look at it. It's like it's not for me to decide how effective that trauma is on each person. What it is to do is be like, hey man, like you've got this. There's people out here that have done it, and we want you to come alongside us. And I would be more than happy to talk with anybody about all these things. And yeah, I have some really good experience in some areas of how to deal with certain things that I've overcome. But there's a whole host of other things that I of course have no idea how to do. But like you said, we started talking about this earlier. I realized that when I changed my mindset about a lot of things, I know that's a big buzzword too, right? Mindset. But when I changed a lot of things in my life and I started injecting grace and gratitude into everything in my life, I started leading with love more. I started being more empathetic and all these other things. I actually started practicing those. I realized that things in my life got so much better and so much more clear. And I found such a better peace with myself. And so that's the other thing that we talk about all the time, right? Is just doing, making the next best decision that you can each day. And the Dash Legacy guy out here, I'm here for it, and I'm here to support you.
Yeah, well, you've been open about, and you've mentioned in this conversation struggles that you've had in your life. You mentioned not knowing your dad. Your dad was in and out. You mentioned alcoholism. You mentioned anxiety, things like that. I'd love to kind of hear some of those obstacles and some of those stories that you've struggled with. And what led you to being here.
Yeah, I'll make it short. Obviously there's a lot to it. Since all this, my dad and I have reconciled, but growing up, my dad left when I was really little, and I'll make this short, I promise. But he kind of took off, and I end up seeing him on weekends and this and that. But the short part about it is I spent a lot of years blaming my father for so many things, which then in turn made me feel like insecure, like I wasn't good enough. Like maybe if I would have done this, this would have changed, this would have changed. And then fast forward to when I joined the Army, and the Army is all about negativity bias, right? The Army loves negativity in good ways and in bad ways. And let me explain. The good way is that it always gives somebody a reason to grow and learn. So an example is if you don't have your equipment for a mission and a leader points it out, well, dang, I'm glad that you squared this away because if I go on this mission and I don't have an essential item, it could be bad. So we don't ever focus on the positive, hardly. We focus, like you said earlier, always on the negative. So my insecurities as a child and always trying to find the negative in everything I did, I thought, well, when I see a negative, I can implement, I can learn it, I can instruct it, I can teach it, and well, that'll make me feel better. So, a soldier has an issue and I point it out. Well, hey, man, now we're better because the mission will be successful because you have your gas mask. Well, what that did is it made me seek out negativity in everything that I did. And in my civilian life with my wife and my kids and everybody, it was just always a negative circle. Nothing was ever good enough. I'd point out a negative, I'd fix it, I'd feel better for 5 seconds. And then the growth mindset would be at a fault, not the good growth mindset, a growth mindset of a fault, which means you're never satisfied with anything. Nothing is ever good enough for you. Because if you did 10 push-ups, 15's better, 20's better. Okay. So this cycle just kept going on. And intermixed with that, we moved and we did all these things. And I used to always kind of socially drink. And then a bunch of years ago, I was just drinking all the time, man. I just was, having a little bit of PTSD coming back from some deployments and just generalized anxiety and depression. And I just found myself just diving into the bottom of bottle after bottle after bottle, man. Just like, I know a lot of people struggle. A lot of people struggle with this. But in a cool way, and in a godly way, the more I was pouring myself into each bottle, looking for the answer, why my dad wasn't there and why this and why that. And, oh man, nothing is my fault. And of course I was a bad kid because my dad wasn't there. And I made this dumb decision because my dad wasn't there, all this nonsense. As I kept digging into the bottom of each bottle, looking for that answer, I started getting this enlightenment and this calling to God. And the more I drank, the more I drew closer to God. And the more I drank, the more I drew closer to God. And it was this weird time in my life. And then this amazing human being came into my life that led me to my salvation and my baptism, which was 9 years ago, just a couple days ago. Even once I became a Christian, I wasn't done drinking. I still was doing both pretty well. So I thought, and, things weren't going too well at the home front. And, God literally like put this thing on my radar and I went off to this mission. And I just told myself and prayed about it. And I said, look, man, this alcohol is just not conducive for my lifestyle. So God, please help me get rid of this and get over this because, it's not working. And again, through prayer and reading and a lot of self-introspection, I went to therapy, I took medicine, I did the whole gamut of everything. And I just started pouring more into my faith and realizing that like the alcohol was just a crutch, like, some people have said before. And I came back from that and, I haven't touched it since. And that was a bunch of years ago. And so, yeah, I mean, so I get it, man, when people are struggling out there with all those different things and all those things that they bring on, it takes a lot of really hard work. And, not everybody is up for it at any given time, right? Myself included. I spent a lot of years, not so much drinking like that, but I spent a lot of years blaming everybody else and never taking accountability for my actions. And it was always somebody else's fault, and the Army made it so easy because when you point out failures and you point out flaws and you point out negativity, there's an opportunity for you to learn and grow and teach others, so this negativity bias is like masked with leadership. And I spent a lot of years doing that. And I was rough on my guys on a couple deployments, man, where I was just like pretty stoic, pretty cut and dry, not a lot of flexibility, not a lot of empathy. Um, and that went on for a while, but yeah, so anybody that thinks that they can't overcome it, it's possible. You don't, I would love it if everybody was religious. But not everybody's going to go that route. But I will tell you that, I've dealt with a lot of different things and I'm still serving and I understand what it's like to have done that and still served and try to balance my family and all that stuff. So again, it's the imperfect dash legacy. I can tell you one thing, Ethan, for sure, that I am thankful to God for every day, that I know that alcoholic will not be on my headstone. And the guy that let anxiety and depression and whatever, right? That won't be on there. And saying it's my dad's fault, uh, won't be on there, right? I don't know what's going to be on there. I don't know how my legacy will shake out, but I know one thing. I know those things that I struggle with. I know those won't be on there, right? And so that's kind of my hope and my prayer for others. If someone has anxiety and it's getting the best of them, let's not let that get on your headstone, man, because everybody is so much more than that. And depression and deployments and whatever, man. Like we can all do this together, and I'm hoping that we can continue to push in the right direction so that nobody's headstone has to say these things. I don't know what it's going to say. It may say mediocre soldier. And honestly, I'll tell you right now, if you put bad soldier on the bottom of mine, but put, Christian father, loving husband, good guy, but it said bad soldier. As much as I love the army, man, I've dedicated my whole life to it. I will take that. I will take that. I don't want it, but I would sacrifice that instead of sacrificing my faith, my family, my personally held values and beliefs. So that's kind of that was a short version, but yeah, man, it was just something that it was pretty crippling for a long time. And again, by the grace of God and my awesome family and just a lot of work. I got through it, man. And I'm on the other side of it. At least those things, I still deal with all kinds of stuff like we all do, but those big obstacles are firmly in the rearview mirror, firmly in the rearview mirror. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, man. Thank you for sharing that story because, for one, it's one that I majorly can identify with. I was actually talking to my mom about this recently. And I talked to so many people on this show, and I think it's a common story that a lot of people have. And there's obviously everybody's story has a different flavor, color to it, but one that I'm talking to a lot of people about that is common is this wound that we get in childhood, based on a parent's presence or not being present, right? It's like that
Mm,
specific issue. I never knew my biological father, to this day, never met my biological father. Um, he's still alive and I know where he lives and stuff like that, but like I've never met the man. And so the story we tell ourselves about that in childhood, about a parent, it could be your mom, it could be your dad, but like not being present, maybe they're physically present, but not actually present, um, builds these flaws that, these, I'll say wounds. I don't want to say flaw. It builds a wound in us as a child. And we tell ourselves a story about why that happened to us. And oftentimes we, like you said, and I did, and I know, and again, many people I talked to, we blame ourselves. I did something wrong to make this parent not want to be around me. And the impact of that in our everyday behavior is that we become, um, our view of ourselves becomes very damaged. We become very insular. Everything is inward. It's about me, 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 me. Everything is about you as a person. And if you let that get away, you're going to have all these negative outcomes in your life. Like you mentioned, you and I have a very similar story: alcoholism, bad relationships, all different types of things. And I think the way to fix it, one of the ways to fix it, is like you did. Um, it is about I'm going to stop thinking about myself. This happened to me, but it's not still happening to me. I need to think about something bigger than me. And you mentioned your spirituality and your faith. And I think that's a big part of the healing is like, look, this isn't about me. Like whatever happened had nothing to do with me. That was something that was going on with my dad or my mom or whatever your part of your story is. And the only way for me to heal this is to start thinking about something much, much bigger than me and start thinking about others. So you can think about God or your higher power, and you can think about your community and your loved ones, and you really tap into that and you stop being so damn selfish and so damn, you know what I mean? So self-centered.
Yeah, I thought about this a lot too, like I try to put myself in my dad's shoes, because I have kids too. And I thought like, well, I could never do that. But the fact of the matter remains is that I'm not him. I have no idea what was actually going on, at that part of his life and whatever was going on, and it's funny too, I was so angry at him for so many years. And, I've told myself numerous times that I was going to just like get up the courage and I was just going to have this knockdown, drag out conversation with my dad. Because like there was a lot of times he would still come to our functions and all these other things, but it just was, there was a period of time where it was just really, really impactful for me. Um, and I was going to muster up the courage to just have it out with him. And it went on for years. I was going to have it out with him. And last year, even, the more I prayed about it, I literally would pray to God and I would say, God, just give me the right words to just bury him. Literally, just give me the perfect sentence that's going to sting the most, hurt the most, show how strong I am, how powerful I am, how much of a man I am, et cetera, et cetera. And oddly, the more that I prayed about that, the more God was putting on my heart that he does love me. And I look back on my entire life, and this is the God's honest truth. There's not a single day in my life that my dad has ever put me down or really question anything that I've ever done. It's kind of ironic, right? Not one time did he say you shouldn't do this or blah. Never, regardless of how often he was there or not. So I look back, and the more I wanted to hurt him, the more God just kept putting on my heart, like, Grant, I give you grace freely every single day. It's not fair of you. And even my mom told me it's not fair. She's like, Grant, don't hold your grace from your dad, if that's what you want to do. So yeah, it was a cool God moment for me last year, man. The more I was trying to craft that perfect sentence to just drive the nail home, the more it just came away from me. And we had this huge like crying session in my house last year, December 26th, actually, where I just like looked at him and started crying and I hugged him and I told him straight up, I was like, man, I tried to hate you and hurt you and I love you. And you've never said a cross word to me, despite all the stuff that he did or didn't do that hurt me. Man, and it was like the largest weight ever lifted off my shoulder my whole life, man. 32 years I had been harboring this resentment and this anger. I mean, that's longer than I've been in the military. You know what I mean? Everything has been shaped by my anger and my resentment and my getting back. So much of it, not all of it, so much of it was shaped off that perception of myself and what he did and all that. And man, once that was untangled, it was like sky's the limit, bro. I can face any day because I feel, free. I know God loves me. Man, it's been a real blessing for me, man. It's been really great. And it was a complete miracle, man, that it even happened because I thought I was bound and determined just to be spiteful and hateful and be mean and angry about everything my whole life, man. And I'm so thankful it's not like that today. I mean, you would have never known, if you met me, you would have never known that I was a, angry, bitter dude because I'm definitely not like that now.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how powerful grace and forgiveness is. I think that when I think about this a lot in my own life, the things that I've dealt with, one of them is depression and suicidal thoughts in my past. And again, you wouldn't know that about me now because I found a way to let it go and to emphasize that part of your story. What I learned about me, by the way, I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that for anyone listening, but this is what worked for me was I had the clear, realization that, I didn't I hated my dad. I hated my mom. I hated a lot of the adults in my life. And I wanted to be angry at them, and just like you, I wanted to bash them and do all these things. But I actually was a coward and didn't even have the courage to do that. So I just ate it internally, and it made me sick. But what I realized is I don't want anything bad against that person. I don't want to hurt them. I want to let go of the pain of that situation. And the way to do that is like what you said, is forgiveness. It is saying, the way that I think you were saying, like, I really wanted to drive the nail in the coffin. I really wanted just to let him have it. And the way to do that isn't by like giving them a tongue lashing. It's by saying, I love you.
Hmm.
Whatever you did, I'm letting it go. That's how you end it. That's how you end that pain. And then taking that to the point of like depression and suicide or suicidal thoughts. I didn't want to die. I wanted I wanted a part of me to die. I wanted a thing that I was thinking about myself to die. I didn't want this life to end. I just was in a lot of pain, and it took for me to do like you said, going to therapy and getting expert help and doing a lot of introspection and doing whatever I needed to do to end a part of my character, to kill a character inside of me so that I could live. And I think that that's where a lot of people struggle. They don't have that level of awareness to see that you just need to fix that one issue and let it go.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. I've had a lot of us have had people that we know and stories about suicidal thoughts and ideations, man. So thanks for sharing that with me, man. I know as part of your story, it probably helps every time we talk about it, right? Just like with me, it just feels kind of nice to talk about it and look back at all the things and see like, yeah, we are capable of moving forward. And like I look at all the times that I was so angry, uh, especially like with my wife and my kids, and obviously with my mom and my dad too, right? But I've been married for 17 years and have three kids, like I look back and I was like, it was so selfish of me to be so, and of course I didn't know this then, right? This is looking backwards. It was so selfish of me to rob them of a lot of good experiences and a lot of good years, where I could have been so much different. And my experiences with my kids and my wife and others in my life, it could have been so much different. And of course, I can't change the past. I can't change the scar tissue that I may have caused others, or scar tissue that others may have caused me, or changes to relationships or whatever the case is. Um, but I think about that a lot, like if I truly believe that I'm a child of God, which I do, then I have to believe that I deserve to give people the best version of me. People that want to be in community with me, I need to give them the best version that God created me to be, right? And I look back on that time in my life where I was just drunk all the time and just all these things. And man, that was, thank God that I still have the loving wife and kids and all that I do, because I was not a cool person. I was not a great person to be around. And, I was robbing them of opportunities. I look back and my dad wasn't there for a lot of times in my life. And yet here I was creating something on myself, regardless if I was living in the house or not. I was also emotionally not there. So by hurting myself with all this pain and guilt and alcohol, I was essentially doing the same thing that my dad did, except I was physically there, right? So I wrestle with this thought a lot. And I've cried about it a lot, and I've thought a lot about how many instances I created in my own life with family and friends and loved ones that, was not great.
Yeah.
And so I think about that a lot, man. I know that's why I try to take a positive attitude into everything each day at the academy, when I meet new people, all these things, because I don't ever want to go back to, and I won't, but I don't ever want to be that person that robs others the opportunity of whatever they need in their life, whoever God puts in their life, right? So I think about that and I use that as a lens for so many things. Don't be the person that's going to just tear somebody else down and just create misery for them because of your own selfishness, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the level of awareness that we all need to have, and I think there's a what you mentioned is a level of humility and introspection, and compassion, because like I was saying about, I talked to a lot of people. It's like, yeah, their parent was physically there, but they weren't actually present. And when you, because you've lived that, and I'm the same. I have done that. And some of the wounds that I still carry and I'm constantly dealing with is, the things that I've done that has hurt other people, and but what that does is give me perspective, right? I'm able to forgive others, and I'm able to see in others because I'm now aware that I'm no better, right? Like I can't
Mhm.
point fingers when I if I can't honestly look myself in the mirror and say, yeah, I can relate. I can see why that happened, why they did what they did, because I've done something similar.
Yeah, and the perspective thing, it's like I look back on it and I think to myself, like, man, I wish I would have had that perspective, that I am causing, pain and hurt and all that stuff. And, like you alluded to as well, I mean, when you're able to have that introspection, man, it's for me anyway, it was a really hard pill to swallow. It really was, man. And it was very difficult to, look at my wife and realize how much pain and torment I caused her and to my mom and to my kids, like it was a rough feeling, man. And I don't wish that feeling on anybody, but the only silver lining in that is that if you're at that spot in your life where you're realizing that some of the stuff you've done in the past is, maybe not the best for your relationships and your family, by being able to say that to somebody, it tells me that you're starting to, if not pretty well down the other side of it, getting back to where you need to be. That not thinking things are bad and all that, I think still when people do that, like we all do, there's still some internal work to do. But sometimes, man, you got to take that gut punch, and we all did. You did, I did, and others do. Um, and yeah, man, it really helps to shape, so much of what I do every day. And I think that's the lesson that God was trying to teach me in all this, that, man, there's so many bigger, better things out there, so many other ways to live life and love others and be in community with people other than tearing them down and all these other things. So I don't want to say I'm like an always optimist, because that obviously wouldn't be accurate. But I do my best, like you do, and others. We do our best every day to have a positive outlook on life and figure out what the most important things are, and do our best to bring value and commitment to those things in our life, whether it's your religion, your relationships, et cetera. So it was a long road, man, but I feel invigorated. I feel like the best I've ever felt in years. I'm going to have for a bunch of years now. So if you are going to ask me when I was going to retire out of the military, it's not anytime soon, man. I've got all this newfound juice in me, man, because I was lucky enough to climb the mountain a little bit. So now I'm looking for the next one.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've been telling everybody, I've gone through falling in and out of love with the military. In fact, I got out for 6.5. I was out for 6.5 years, completely out. But I'm back in love with it, and so that's it's a great feeling. And while you were speaking a minute ago, something about a lot is I want everyone. I think what's really powerful and what you're speaking to is for people to be superhuman. And what a lot of people, when they think about being superhuman, meaning like without flaw, with have some sort of superpower, or having like a lack of emotion or anything else. And in my opinion, it's the exact opposite of that. It's being super human, and being human is emotion, and the nonstop always going thinking, and all the flaws and the blemishes that we have, and then owning it, expressing it, sharing it, and healing it is the process of being superhuman. And that's when you're unstoppable. That's when you
Hmm.
are unbreakable, is when you become superhuman.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. And back to the military part, there's so many people in the military that have achieved so many great things. There's so many people in the civilian world that have achieved so many great things. And when you look at those people, especially in today's society and social media, a lot of times, they're highlighting just that gold medalist standing on the podium getting their gold medal, right? They will be highlighting us, whether we like it or not. They will be marching us across the stage next year with all these accolades and praise and all that stuff. But the nitty gritty everyday stuff it's visible, but a lot of times it does get overlooked because those are the intangible things and those blemishes and those flaws and those mistakes and how we deal with those that make us get up each day and try to reach those levels. And so I go back to the social media thing. Everybody nowadays has something they're dealing with, whether it's the things we talk about, alcohol and stress and anxiety and depression. And sometimes that I think people gravitate towards these things as maybe reasons to not do all the things they want to do. You know what I mean? They have these things or they see other people and they use them as barriers to entry. But yeah, you're exactly right, man. Those intangible everyday things, waking up early, doing all those things, grinding it out each day, um, is what it's all about. And I say often on my videos and stuff that I do that like it's super easy to chase goals of other people. I want to be like this bodybuilder. I want to be like this skier or whatever. But I think sometimes the goals that we have for ourselves that maybe they're not as sexy as all the other ones out there. And we have to tell ourselves that that's okay. I told my soldiers quite often, like, if you want to be a pastry chef, like be the best pastry chef you can, man. Like do it. You may not get the same like name and lights as whatever somebody else, but like do something you're passionate about or something that's making a difference. Do some kind of work that serves others. That's one of the messages I talk about all the time, because it is easy to get caught up with the super before you separated those, the superhuman stuff. Everybody's perfect. Everybody gets gold medals. Everybody is doing all this stuff. And because it's not sexy to talk about your blemishes and your flaws, nobody I mean, people do want to hear it, but it's, people I think should realize more that it's not getting the gold medal that makes you able to get the gold medal. That's a super snapshot in time. That's one snapshot of one event. All those other things leading up to it is where you really make your money. So I talk about that all the time about making the next best decision and not letting people that don't add value to your life, not letting them dictate how you feel about yourself and the things that you value.
Yeah, I have worked. You're what you're talking about. The message you're talking about is one that people really need to hear. So I'm going to reemphasize it because achievement, the pursuit of an achievement has almost no value in your quality of life. I have worked with some people who have achieved amazing things in their life, whether it be in sport, career, money, you name it. And a lot of those people, not all of them, but a lot of those people are some of the most broken, wounded people and unhealthy people I've ever met in my entire life because they sought
Hmm.
the achievement out of their brokenness. Out of, it was like they were trying to prove something to the world, or they were trying to get everyone to look at them and see how much value they have or whatever. And it brought them nothing in life. It was a complete empty achievement. And I see people like this in the academy with us, right? Like they came here because they thought that achieving this benchmark in their career was going to finally fulfill them, was going to finally make them important or whatever, and it's not. What's going to make you great and have value is exactly what you talk about. What you do every single day, how you see yourself, how you treat others, and what you give to the world.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of coming here and doing all this stuff and waking up and all these things people do? I mean, what's the point of that if you're A, not giving back to others, and B, you're not like learning how to do other things better, you know? So, it's like when people chase relationships, there's brokenness in relationships, and what do? They assign their value to a relationship, or they assign their value to being a CEO or a COO or CFO, the C-suites. And let's face it, you and I have both, I mean, I'm speaking for you here because I know you're human, but you and I have both assigned value to things in our lives to define us, things we want to do, people we want to meet, certain achievements and goals. So I think there's some healthy balances to that, right? Where you look at something, you try to emulate that. I think there are some healthy balances to that. But there's not a single achievement. I mean, even me, when I became saved and became baptized and I came up from that water, that singular achievement changed my life forever. But the next day, I still had to wake up and practice those spiritual beliefs and do my best. And Lord knows I make mistakes every day still in the spiritual realm, right? So, yes, that singular achievement did it, but it didn't, me coming up out of that water was symbolic. But it didn't change, for me anyway, it didn't immediately tell me that I wasn't dealing with alcohol or anxiety and depression. I can't use the gold medal and be like, cool, I'm good now. And that's kind of what I alluded to when I talked about the growth mindset to a fault. I tried to explain this to someone the other day and they didn't really understand it. And that's fine. That was just my perception, is that the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. The growth mindset is great and I love it. And I'm so glad that I have it. But I also have told people as a cautionary tale that the growth mindset also has a sharp side of it too that could wreak havoc on your life, like it did for me. So I always caution people when they throw the phrase around growth mindset, really know what that means for you. And are you going to give yourself humility and grace on this growth mindset platform, right? Are you going to still allow yourself to be human and not put yourself down if you don't achieve 15 push-ups next time instead of 10? Like, there's a fine balance between chasing the next thing and the next achievement, the next accolade, and also giving yourself grace and humility and realizing that, going after things and making mistakes and not achieving those all the time doesn't mean that you're not going to get it. And it doesn't mean that you don't have the right mindset. It just means that you're human, and that you have to give yourself that, you have to look inwardly and give yourself a little grace.
Yeah, I am 100% guilty of the negative aspects of the growth mindset. And because by nature, if I say I need to go learn something, I need to go have this opportunity, I can change. By nature, I would say the vast majority of people would probably agree with this, is you're also saying I'm not enough.
Hmm.
I need to go do this so that I will finally know this information, and so on and so forth. And it's it's a slippery slope. Of course I don't ever want to be, it's like I don't know how to define it otherwise. Like I never want to be fixed, but there can be a negative aspect to that growth mindset
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
it's just like, because there's all these seekers out there in the world. It's like they want to learn, go, have all these experiences, and they also feel empty because they think that next growth opportunity, that next education. I mean, that's what my whole 100%, the beginning of my military career and all of my college education through 2 master's degrees was that, right? I thought, well, let me go prove to the world what I can accomplish and what I can learn and get all these letters behind my name and all these cool schools and all these elite units that I assessed for and got into. And let me show the world that I'm finally worth something. And when I got there, it was just completely empty because I
Hmm.
never took the time to already say, like, I am already good enough. I am already whole. I'm already a complete person. And I'm going to have this experience just to have this experience so that I can give more to the world. But a lot of people don't see it that way.
Yeah, that's such a great point, man. And amen to that. Yeah, we are all like fine just the way we are. Could we do things better? Could we achieve all these other things? Yeah. And that's kind of what it's about, going after those things that you want to, but achieving the highest pillar of the mountain unless it's solidified by a bunch of other things, is not going to get you anywhere. One of the ways that I look at things that I want to get after, including coming here, I mean, it was selfish to me. I mean, it did create a little bit of a conversation, me coming here between, my wife and I and all the time away and all that. And, maybe it was not the best decision. Maybe it was. But I try to look at it like what's going to add the greatest value to those things that I value the most, those important relationships in my life. And so maybe part of me is still pushing so hard while I'm here to do all these things and to meet all these people and make the most of it because maybe, in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, oh, initially my wife wasn't super crazy about me coming here, but understands that it's important to me. So I'm trying to, maximize, the time that I'm here. So I always, one of the things I try to remind myself is like, if I'm pushing for the growth mindset, like what am I balancing that against? Like, is it a relationship in my life? Is it my faith? Is it something that I want to do for selfish reasons? Is it a goal that's going to lead to a long-term goal, or is it just to get my name in lights? And yeah, there still are things that we do because we're humans and we're looking for that external validation from others. We still do things that are going to bring light to ourselves for sure. But a lot of the things that we're doing now, we need to balance and we should be balancing against like long-term things, our health, our happiness, our faith, our families and things like that. And I know for me, um, I think of what's going to be next for me when I leave here. And so again, I think back to that headstone and I think like, okay, man, like the next evolution of my life, once I leave here, the next big block of time, um, let's see what I can do to see what's going to be on that headstone. Let's see what impact I'm going to leave. And why I say that is because again, regardless of what ends up being on my headstone, I also think back to that time when I was 12 through 16 and I always wanted somebody to talk to and all these things about things that were going on. So I try to use these like graphical images of 12-year-old Grant and a headstone in a lot of things, in a lot of conversations I have with people here at the academy or people that I run into at church. I just try to be present and think of what can I get from them. I love hearing people's stories. And then in turn, maybe there's something that I can give to them from my crazy life experience.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, that's what this life is all about for me, and that's why I choose to do this podcast. Is to do the work, right? Like, I mean, that's why I called it "Do the Work." It's so that the work's never done. It's a process. It's a journey, and it's all these lessons that I feel so lucky to get to learn. Like I feel so fortunate just to get to sit here with you today and hear your perspectives and your wisdom and your knowledge, so that I can continue to work on myself. And it's as you were talking about earlier, it rang inside of my head about just the level of honesty and awareness that we each have to have with ourselves. Looking in the
Hmm.
mirror, and like I said, if I'm going to do something for my own personal glory, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that, as long as you're aware and you're honest about it.
Hmm.
The problem is most of us don't have awareness and we're not being honest about it. We'll lie and say, no, I'm going to do this because it's going to be good for everybody else. This is what's in their best interest. And it's like, that's lie. That's a lie. It can be a
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah.
So, and I'm guilty. This is me looking in the mirror and remembering that that's some work that I can do too.
Yeah. I use the mirror all the time as an analogy. I just said post the other day. I said the person looking back at you in the mirror is normally the one responsible for all your struggles and all your, all the obstacles to your success. And I always say the other mirror one I say is, like, you know, the only person the person judging you the hardest is the one looking back at you when you're shaving, for males. I use that a lot because that's, introspection and all that. It's it doesn't come easy and none of us have it figured out. That's for sure. But being able to have some introspection and continue to look and have some kind of self-awareness and some emotional intelligence and figure out, like you said, are you doing this for the right reason? And maybe you aren't doing it selfishly, but you tell yourself in your head, you can tell others whatever you want to. But when you lay your head on your pillow at night, you should be able to know in yourself, like, yeah, I just wanted to do this because, I need that external validation. And, whatever the thing is, So yeah, I mean, I would agree. I'm super back to what you said. I'm super honored that you'd want to have me on here, man. Like I've already learned a ton from you. I love being in class with you, man. I love getting to know you more. And, we've talked a ton about, fitness. We didn't even get into that realm of it, which is, that's a whole other thing that we like to do. But yeah, like, it's no, like I always say these things, like it's no doubt to me, like how you and I got connected, even from first getting here till now and building our friendship and growing together. Like there's no doubt, that why we end up getting together and having these great conversations, not just this one, but ones we have at school and, the gym and all that. So, yeah, man, I'm super excited that you had me on for sure, man. And I know you're getting ready for your big football game, so
Yeah.
I wish you luck with that, man.
Yeah, yeah, no, I appreciate it. And as we bring it to a close, I think that you really nailed it for me. It's like I don't think people come into each other's lives by mistake. I do believe in God, and I believe that everybody is brought together for a reason. And you're truly a gift in my life. Again, those conversations that we've had, and I know we're gonna have a lot more. We're only 18 weeks into 48,
I'm not
and
even
so
counting, bro. I'm not even
yeah,
counting.
I'm counting. I'm counting down. And but you are such a gift. You're a gift to me personally, which I'm grateful for. But what I'm more grateful for is the gift that you are to everyone in your life and who you touch. And so, yeah, I'll just close it with that, man. Just thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's such an honor, and thank you so much, man. I just want to echo that. I don't believe that God makes any mistakes, and He puts people in each other's lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. I truly believe that, man. So we're gonna be 75 alum, man. We need to schedule this where we can do this a year from now, and
Hell yeah.
and touch up and like just do like a follow up or whenever, and see like how you're getting after it and what I'm doing and. But yeah, Ethan, it's been awesome, man. I can't wait to see you tomorrow at school. Best of luck with the show, man. And yeah, man, it's been awesome. So again, I really appreciate it. I'm honored to have done it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, signing off.